Now, the lower oil price environment, the shortage of foreign exchange, and more recently, rising inflation has been a source of concern for many indigenous companies in the country. CNBC Africa's Wole Famurewa spoke to James Agada, Chief Executive Officer of Computer Warehouse Group, to discuss how local companies are strategizing in these times.
Mr. Agada, thank you so much for speaking to us. Everyone knows about the current economic conditions, the scarcity of foreign exchange and so forth. Give us a sense of how your company, being an indigenous company, is wading through these tough times.
Thank you. I think there are two parts to the problem for us, in the sense that information and communication technology is not something you can do in isolation. No matter what you do, you have to take foreign components. You have to pay for some IP or say pay for some products. So you are always exposed in that sense. However, what this is causing everybody to do, including us, is to increase the proportion of your business that the input costs are in Naira and the revenue is in Naira. And that is driving the growth of quite a lot of services. And so you see a lot of platforms coming on, platforms for payments, and platforms for different things, for e-commerce and all that. So you build out if you've built out the infrastructure, you built out the platform, your actual dependency is not that much. However, we do have, in our case, a large business that is involved in building platforms for other people, and those platforms for other people depend on servers, it depends on software like Oracle databases, and those have significant foreign exchange components. So at this point, I can tell you the issue is that a lot of people are on wait and see.
But talk a little more about the innovation that we're beginning to see, given the reality on the ground. Foreign exchange is a scarce commodity right now, and the whole situation with the economy is really bringing everyone to begin to think about what can I do locally, to what extent can I localize my business, increase the local content element. Talk to us about the type of innovations that are coming, especially into the ICT space.
What I see, I mean, it's been going on, it's just becoming a bit more pronounced. What I see, as I said, is a big push into people providing platform services where you pay as you go. Right. Be it for us, for instance, we have solutions for microfinance banks, we have solutions in the payment space, we have solutions for government revenue collection and government revenue generation. And this is a big area where not only us, but a lot of other local players are expanding. If I look at something like Diamond Yellow, and you see it's actually a platform, we are behind it. And so that's becoming where things are happening. Right. It's of course also a high mortality area. So I mean, you will see, I saw the other day that a few cab platforms are packing up. But really, what can we do? But a big opportunity for those in Nigeria, really.
All right, let's talk a bit about the ICT space in general and the growth opportunity that you're seeing. Obviously, there's been so much talk about the telecom boom. We saw that over the last decade and a half, and we're probably going into a phase where payment systems, things like e-commerce are now becoming the buzzwords in Nigeria. Your thoughts about the growth potential, especially as we're looking to continue to diversify the revenue base of this economy?
What I see is that the big growth areas are those areas where the economy are also growing, one. And then there are also those areas that too informal, and you need to formalize them. And then you have those areas where government needs data or needs money. So you see a lot of growth in tax and that. There's a huge opportunity all around insurance, health. There's a huge opportunity around what can you provide to the SMEs. At the last count, 34 million micro, small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. So the challenge now
would that be all around financial services or other type of services?
Not financial services, not financial services alone. It's also, let's take for instance, you look at something like transport. There are so many things that you need to solve in transport, but the opportunity is just huge. In Lagos alone at 2010, World Bank says you have 18 million passenger journeys per day in Lagos. 2010, I mean, you can look at the growth in Lagos, but it's still largely informal. So if you entered one of those buses and you have an accident, there's actually no insurance. You're on your own. You can't look out for a schedule because there are no schedules. Payments are all in cash, so of course there's so much leakage. So when you start looking at all these kinds of opportunities, the thing is for us to, in the ICT sector, once we turn our mind away from supply, then the boom you are seeing in telco will actually be small change.
Right. But we're also in a season where there's so much talk about intervention funds, focus on certain sectors. Your thought about how the authorities in Nigeria should react and to a large extent assist local companies at this time, because many will say that this crisis presents a great opportunity for Nigeria to rethink how we do business and the future of this economy.
Well, if I don't know how government should help every sector. I have ideas of how they can help us in the ICT sector.
Absolutely, let's hear about that.
And what we see is that if you look at the intervention funds that are being marked, a few billion there for SMEs, a few billion there for airlines, a few billion there for power. In all these areas, there are significant problems that you can only solve with some application of ICT. And because there's a local flavor to what these problems are, you actually are going to have local solutions. So if I give you an example, if you're a power company, the losses you're having because people are stealing the power is quite significant, maybe 25 to 30%. Most of the solutions that people are bringing from outside won't work because they don't understand how this stealing is done in Nigeria. So you bring in a smart meter system. Well, the smart meter system doesn't know that somebody is tapping from the lines directly. So, however, like we have done, you have able to put together a solution which you've proven that works, and we can detect if you go and tap power from the lines. So now, if there's a 200 billion or 100 billion intervention for the power, all government needs to do is say, okay, let's take X point of it to have solutions to these problems.
Right.
If you're going to release 200 billion to SMEs, you know, you can't even say that this is what the impact has been. But if you, out of that your 200 billion, you said, okay, I will remove 1 billion or 2 billion and actually sponsor the IT that these SMEs should use, then you have a situation where you could actually, even if all they've done is put them on an e-commerce platform, you could actually point to, these are the people I gave the 200 billion, and I can see what they're doing with it, that they're trading. So my point is that IT itself might not need for you to give them any special intervention, because IT is a service. It's going to enable other people grow.
Right.
So if you're then putting money down to enable somebody grow, and you, the least you can do is to anoint a portion of that, apportion some part of that, and say, we'll use this part to build those IT solutions that will enable airlines grow. I mean, airline booking in Nigeria, none of the software is local.
Right.
Just check it. Any of the power, how much of it, even when they say they are doing meters in Nigeria, none of those meters are designed in Nigeria. So the actual local content, when you make them in Nigeria, is the labor to assemble them.
Right.
The real intellectual property belongs to somebody else, and that is the big portion of it.
Right.
So my feeling is that government that wants to develop IT in Nigeria should look at how much of the investment is making to intervene in these various sectors and say that, okay, as I'm intervening in agriculture, I'm also intervening in IT for agriculture. I'm intervening in power, I'm also intervening in IT for power. That way we'll build local solutions that solve local problems. And good thing, those local solutions, if they really do solve the local problems at the scale that 180 million people are going to use it, we'll be able to take it out.
We've really focused on the ICT space, and in the past I've heard about the huge potential that Nigeria has to become an ICT hub in West Africa. We've seen the huge success of India, and many will say there are many striking parallels between Nigeria's history and India's. Your thoughts about the opportunity that this economic crisis presents for the government to save foreign exchange, for the government to create jobs, if we were to look more carefully at the potential of ICT, the local ICT sector in particular, to help support the growth that we want?
I think I've had this discussion in so many fora, and what I said last is still my opinion, in the sense that of all your sectors, ICT is the one that can't stand alone. It needs somebody to use it. And therefore, the best way for you to grow the IT sector is to make sure that there are people who are using it. And I'll give you an example. If we take the so-called 34 million micro, small and medium enterprises, and we say, okay, we're able to use IT to make them add $100 extra to their turnover in a year, not in a month, in a year. That's already $3.4 billion additional to your GDP. If we're to use IT to make them grow such that they employ one more person, theoretically that's 34 million people that you could employ. And you know what? You could. Because if I look at some of those companies, and I know some of them that we've worked with, we have a lady in Lagos that's making, I think it's customized cosmetics. And this customized cosmetics, she's on our platform. And you know what? She gets orders from Benin, from Abuja, and they buy. And they're not cheap. Okay, so ordinarily she would have been able to sell only to the people within her neighborhood or within the market she is in Nigeria. But by being on that platform, she's able to sell to people all around Nigeria. So if we take that as a basis and you want to promote local enterprises even to outside, because there's no reason why she shouldn't be able to sell to anywhere in the world. The big contribution we can make in the economy is that we can make these kinds of things possible and therefore drive up both employment and drive up the economy.
That was James Agada, Chief Executive Officer of Computer Warehouse Group.